Today we're going to be talking with Simon Newstead of RBS Global Transaction Services, and we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about Sibos in Toronto 2011. Now, Sibos is such a huge and diverse conference and has, experts from all around the globe coming to network and talk. You had a bit of a closing soundbite in Sibos 2010 in Amsterdam, where you said you were cautiously optimistic about the state of the global economy. Going into Toronto 2011, how do you view the Sibos agenda?
Yeah, I remember that discussion last year, and I think there's evidence that we can point out that says that statement about cautious optimism was an accurate one. Mm-hmm. And I think I'd cite the 2011 World Payments Report, which is something that we will be releasing along with Capgemini and EFMA, our World Payment Report partners, at this year's Sibos and discussing in a panel session. I'd cite there's evidence in there that supports this mood of cautious optimism. I think in particular, and without giving too much away because the report's currently under embargo, if you look at the global volumes of payment transactions and the way that they have increased over the last couple of years, even in 2009, there was a 5% growth rate in the volume of transactions. And in 2010, the initial figures are suggesting that climbed back up to a 7.8% growth rate. So I think that's a reasonable sort of test and a proxy for the health of the transaction banking industry, and definitely an indicator that statement about cautious optimism was well-founded.
Mm-hmm. So NRBS will be discussing the World Payments Report on Finextra TV at Sibos as well. So we'll be looking forward to that. So keeping on the same tone of sort of being cautious, over the past year, talk about regulation, Basel III, Dodd-Frank in the U.S., even what's going on with SEPA in Europe seems to dominate the conversation right now. So how does RBS see how to manage that regulatory environment and that change?
Yeah, I think that's a very good and a very timely question when we are, as an industry, seeing probably an unprecedented level and number of major regulatory initiatives right now. I think one of the key conclusions is that maybe in the past it was possible to focus on these things sort of at a business level. So from a payments perspective or a trade perspective, you'd look at the individual initiatives in isolation. You can't do that anymore. That there is such a rich tapestry of regulatory initiatives out there, and increasingly they have many interdependencies, and the way they are impacting on all parts of the transaction banking landscape are so significant that you really have to look at this as a complete picture. So I think that's a key point. I mean, another key issue is that there's a much greater need, perhaps than ever before, for consistency of implementation on a regional and global basis. Because so many of these initiatives, and perhaps Basel III is a good example, it does affect the payments industry, it does affect trade finance, and it does need to be implemented in a consistent way globally. So with that in mind, I mean, that's why RBS is focusing very heavily on a number of key regulatory initiatives, and Basel III and SEPA are both good examples in working very actively within the transaction banking industry and with the regulatory community towards making sure that these regulations are implemented in a consistent way and in a way which avoids unintended consequences.
So we've talked about change caused by regulations, and now we can talk a little bit about market change. So there the industry is attracting many new players, some of which are kind of non-traditional players. So is there still a space for traditional payment providers in this marketplace?
I certainly think it's true to say that we've never seen more non-traditional players entering aspects of the payments market. Does that question the ongoing role of the traditional providers? I'd say absolutely not. I mean, what you're seeing undoubtedly is a growing variety of new partnership models, new cooperation models and new competition models, and some of those are including an increasing number of non-traditional players. And what that's doing is it's stimulating innovation, and it's stimulating competition. But it's not undermining the ongoing relevance of the traditional provider. And in fact, with their deep-rooted customer relationships and broad customer knowledge, that those are just as relevant as they ever were in the past. I think what we are seeing, and partly it's a reflection of the discussion we were just having about the changing market and regulatory landscape, that's causing traditional providers to question whether they necessarily, and let's take payments as an example, want to participate in every element of the payments value chain in the way they have in the past, or whether there are opportunities to work with other partners, other providers, some of whom may be non-traditional, on certain aspects of that value chain, where those partners bring a new capability, a new technology, or perhaps an additional scale. But none of that, I'd say, is questioning the role of the traditional provider. Really, it's just a reflection of the way that the payments industry and the transaction banking industry more generally is in a period of evolution right now in response to market change.
So we've moved on from cautious optimist to we're now dealing with change.
I think so. And if you look at the objectives that SWIFT have set for Sibos this year, I think they're very relevant because they're about regulation revisited, they're about technology, and I think that the mood, I guess, that those objectives are setting is right because it's one of an unprecedented level of change. Challenges, yes. A significant amount of regulation, yes, but also, I'm sure, additional new opportunities.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Liz.